Dr. Mara Cowery was treating a refugee with shrapnel wounds when the child first attached herself to her shadow. The medical station operated in constant triage mode. Too many patients, insufficient supplies, and the kind of exhaustion that made days blur together. Mara had been working the Rikesh corridor for 4 years, and she'd learned not to get attached because attachment meant grief when patients inevitably died or disappeared into the chaos of ongoing war. The girl had arrived with a transport of refugees from a bombed settlement. Velthari, Mara recognized the bioluminescent markings and the two large eyes that suggested telepathic sensitivity. Maybe 7 in human equivalent years, nonverbal from shock, covered in minor burns and contusions that suggested she'd survived something catastrophic. There was no identification, no family, just a traumatized child who flinched at sudden movements and whose markings stayed locked in the muted gray that indicated severe emotional distress. Mara treated her physical injuries and assigned her to the refugee dormitory with the dozens of other displaced children the station sheltered. Standard protocol. They didn't have resources for individual attention, just basic care and referrals to whatever child services still functioned in this sector. But the girl followed Mara during rounds, hid behind her when other staff approached, appeared outside Mara's quarters at night because being alone triggered panic attacks that made her markings flash distress colors visible from down the corridor. You need to maintain professional distance, her colleague Dr. Tanaka advised. We can't provide individualized care for every traumatized child. We'd burn out in a week. She's 7 and having nightmares about watching people burn alive. Professional distance feels like cruelty. Professional distance is survival, you know this. Mara did know this, but watching a small child suffer alone felt impossible, so she bent the rules. Let the girl shadow her during non-critical work. Eventually set up a cot in her own quarters so the child could sleep somewhere she felt safe. You need a name, Mara said one evening. I can't keep calling you the Velthari girl. The child stared at her with two large eyes and said nothing. She hadn't spoken since arriving. How about Nova? You showed up out of nowhere like a new star. The girl's markings flickered, not quite happy colors yet but less gray than before. Mara decided to take that as agreement. Slowly, painfully, Nova began to heal. She started communicating through Velthari sign language, simple gestures at first, then increasingly complex ideas. She learned to smile at Mara's terrible jokes. She helped organize medical supplies with the serious concentration of someone trying to be useful. Mara taught her basic standard, read her children's books scavenged from abandoned settlements, held her through nightmares about fires and screaming, and losing everyone she loved. It wasn't parenting, just extended medical care for a patient who needed emotional support as much as physical treatment. Nova clearly disagreed about the nature of their relationship. She started calling Mara, safe mother, in sign language, drew pictures of the two of them together, and clung with the fierce desperation of a child who'd lost everything and found one person who made the world feel survivable. 4 months into this arrangement, Imperial guards arrived asking about a missing child. They were searching for Princess Savakal of the Velthari Ascendancy, the royal heir who disappeared during a terrorist attack that killed her security detail and dozens of civilians. They had bioscans, identification protocols, and authority to search every refugee facility in the sector. Mara's stomach dropped when they described the child they were looking for. Nova wasn't just a refugee. She was the heir to one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. And Mara had been letting her organize bandages like she was just another displaced child. Empress Kelshara arrived at the medical station with military escort and barely controlled desperation. She was imposing, tall even for Velthari, with luminescent markings that denoted both royal lineage and active military service, and an intensity that made Mara's survival instincts go active. I was informed my daughter is here, the Empress said, her standard precise despite obvious stress. "Princess Savikel, where is she?" "She's helping me treat a patient," Mara said, trying to project calm professionalism while her mind raced through implications. "She's been stable here. No indication she wanted to be found. She's 7 years old. She doesn't get to decide whether she wants to be found." The Empress's markings flashed colors Mara didn't recognize. "Where is she?" Mara led her to the treatment bay where Nova was carefully handing over supplies. Gauze, antiseptic, the basic items Mara had taught her to identify. The girl's markings were showing contentment colors, soft blues and greens that indicated she felt safe and useful. "Sova," the Empress said, and her voice cracked on the name. Nova looked up. Her expression cycled through recognition, confusion, and something that looked uncomfortably like fear. Her markings shifted to muted distress colors. "Mother Empress," she signed in formal Velthari, and even Mara could read the tension in her movements. The Empress approached carefully, reaching out for the embrace that Velthari culture considered fundamental to parent-child bonding. Nova took a step back, closer to Mara. "Sova, you're safe now. I've come to bring you home." "Safe here," Nova signed rapidly. "Home here, want to stay." "Sweetheart, this is a medical station. Your actual home is the palace." "Safe mother is family," Nova signed, and she grabbed Mara's hand with desperate intensity. "Want to stay with safe mother." The Empress's markings flashed through colors that looked like pain. "I am your mother. I've spent 4 months searching for you. Do you understand the resources, the people, the effort?" "Didn't ask to be found," Nova signed. "Was safe here." The Empress looked at Mara, with an expression somewhere between rage and devastation. "What have you done to my daughter?" "I've treated her injuries and provided shelter," Mara said carefully. "She was severely traumatized when she arrived. She's forgotten her own family, her home, her duties. She's 7 and she's been through trauma. She needs stability, not. She needs her actual family." The Empress's control was fracturing. "She is heir to the Velthari ascendancy. She has responsibilities that require immediate attention." She stopped, looking at her daughter hiding behind a human stranger like Mara was protection against the Empress herself. "Sova, please." The Empress's voice went quiet. "Let me hold you, let me." "No," Nova signed. "Want to stay with safe mother, please don't make me leave." And Mara watched this powerful monarch shatter because her daughter, who she'd spent months desperately searching for, had imprinted on a stranger and now refused the comfort she was offering. The Empress requested a private meeting that felt like a threat, but turned into something more complicated. They sat in Mara's cramped office, surrounded by medical supplies and Nova's drawings covering every wall. "Tell me how this happened," the Empress said, exhaustion replacing anger. "How my daughter became so attached to you that she fears returning home." Mara explained. "The trauma, the attachment, the nightmares." Standard protocol would have been dormitory housing with minimal individual attention, but Nova had latched onto her specifically, and Mara couldn't bring herself to maintain professional distance. "I didn't know who she was. I just saw a scared child who needed help. And now she sees you as her mother more than she sees me." The Empress's markings shifted to colors that looked like grief. "She's traumatized. She associates me with safety because I was here when she was suffering. Once she's back in familiar surroundings, will she?" The Empress pulled up holographic images, surveillance footage from before the attack. They showed Nova, but different. Markings muted, body language tense, even with the Empress showing constant formality. "My daughter was never happy in the palace. She struggled with protocols, with expectations. She was anxious, withdrawn." She gestured at the drawings on Mara's walls, bright, cheerful, showing Nova and Mara doing ordinary things. "These are the first genuinely happy images I've seen my daughter create in years." "What are you saying?" The attack broke her out of the anxiety that defined her palace life, and finding you gave her what I apparently could not, the feeling of being safe and wanted without conditions. The Empress's voice cracked. "You didn't know who she was. You wanted her simply, because she was a child who needed help. So what happens now? That depends on you. The Empress met her eyes. Velthari children form primary attachment bonds that shape development. Sova has bonded with you. Forcibly separating you could cause permanent damage, but she's also the heir. She cannot remain here indefinitely. You want me to convince her to go with you? No. I want to propose something that will cause political chaos but seems to be the only option that doesn't damage my daughter. The Empress took a breath. Come with us, to the palace, as co-parent, share Sova with me. Give her stability, while I rebuild a relationship that apparently wasn't as strong as I believed. Mara stared. You're asking me to help raise the heir to your empire. I'm asking you to continue being what my daughter needs, while I learn to be a mother instead of just an empress. That's insane. I've spent 4 months searching for her. I will not lose her because I'm too rigid to accept that she needs something I cannot provide alone. The Empress's markings showed determined colors. If sharing her with you means she's happy, then I share her, but I need your agreement. And if I refuse, then I take her and hope time helps her remember I'm her mother. But I'll always know I chose duty over her needs. The Empress looked at Nova's drawings, and she'll know it too. Mara agreed because the alternative was watching Nova suffer. They returned to the palace, Mara, Nova, and the Empress, and began building a family that made no conventional sense. The political fallout was immediate, court advisors horrified, factions forming. The Empress weathering it all with determined intensity, making clear the arrangement was non-negotiable. Nova thrived. With Mara present, she engaged with palace life, attending lessons if Mara sat nearby, participating in functions if Mara was there as anchor. Slowly reconnecting with her mother too, but differently than before. The Empress learned to approach as mother to child rather than monarch to heir. Mara learned that parenting a royal heir was terrifying but fundamentally similar to parenting any child. Consistency, patience, showing up. 6 months later, the Empress and Mara had a conversation that redefined their understanding. I resented you initially, the Empress admitted, for being what Sova needed when I should have been enough. You are enough, she loves you. But she needs you too. And I've learned that parenthood isn't ownership. It's ensuring children have access to whatever they need, even if that means sharing them. This isn't normal. Nothing about Sova's life has been normal. Normal stopped being relevant the moment she disappeared. The Empress's markings showed acceptance. You gave my daughter the experience of being valued for herself rather than her position. That's worth any political inconvenience. And you gave her heritage, identity, connection to her people. So we complement each other, build together what neither could build alone. They watched Nova playing in the gardens, markings bright with contentment. She calls you both mother now, Mara observed. Palace mother and safe mother. Does sharing the title bother you? It did. Now I'm grateful she has both. That she knows she can receive different kinds of care from different people. Thank you, the Empress said quietly, for seeing my daughter, for this impossible arrangement. Thank you for being flexible enough to accept it. Nova appeared with a drawing, the 3 of them together, labeled family in careful standard letters. Is this okay? She signed hopefully, 2 mothers. The Empress and Mara answered together, yes. Because parenthood, they'd learned, isn't biology or law or convention. It's showing up, providing what a child needs, and building new definitions when old ones prove inadequate. The Empress gazed at Mara across their shared daughter, and in her eyes was acknowledgement neither expected. That love shared is not love diminished, that families can be built from crisis and still become genuine, and that sometimes profound parenting means recognizing when your child needs something you cannot provide alone. 3 beings from different backgrounds, forming a family that made no sense by traditional standards, held together by commitment to a child who needed all of them. Somehow, impossibly, it worked.